All right, guys, good evening. My name is Dipesh Deshmukh, and on behalf of IBG, I'm welcoming all of you. I can see a lot of people who are here for the first time. So for them, I'm going to briefly introduce what is IBG. IBG is India Business Group. We are a chamber of commerce, and the entire focus and goal of IBG is to help our members in any way we can, to get business, to get leads, to get connected with countries, for businesses internationally as well. We have already several MOUs in place with various chamber of commerces within India and internationally as well. So yes, our members get to do business through that, and that's a very big benefit. Now, before we start, a few requests. I will request everyone to keep their audio on mute. Second request is people, since this is like a webinar or a panel discussion, only the speakers should keep their videos on. Others, I request to keep the videos off so that there is less disturbance for people. All right. And last request is people who are here for the first time, I request them to kindly put their name, mobile number, and email address in the chat box so that we can reach out to you all with the next event details and stuff like that. So with that, yes, so I was talking about IBG. It's founded by none other than Mr. Vikash Mittal Sen. He's a founder president, and Vikash is absolutely a people's person. And he goes out of the way to help our members, to mentor members. Yes, he gives time. Any member can set up an appointment with him, and he will be very happily mentoring us. So that's a very big advantage. I mean, in normal day-to-day life, where do we get to, spend time with a multi-millionaire who will actually take interest in your business and tell you what to do, which is right or wrong. All right. So a very big thank you to Vikash for who he is and what he does for the members. We have our amazing team of Siddhi, Girish, and they help us tirelessly. And also, I would like to quickly introduce you all to our CEO, Ms. Priya Pansare. Priya, if you can say a few words quickly.
Yeah, okay, I'm not going to take much time. Just going to start with a small video so our guests also see what IBG is and just give a small brief. Girish, will you be able to play that video? Good afternoon, everyone, especially to IBG members and all the guests who are attending for the first time. IBG is a Chamber of Commerce since past 8 years since inception now, and we have divided our members into 11 verticals. And today's panel discussion is amongst 3 sectors, which is real estate, legal, and banking and finance. So, not taking much of time, over to you, Dipesh, and let's start with our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priya. And guys, as you all saw in the video, we are doing a lot of things for the members. We are doing a lot of virtual meetings. We are doing meetings with various council generals from various countries. We are doing meetings with several chamber of commerces from all over the world. Almost every week, we set up meetings for our members, and that's a fabulous advantage that our members get. So today, we're going to have a panel discussion, and the topic is self-redevelopment. Know the financial and legal hot buttons to develop your property on your own. And we have three experts to talk on various topics. To start with, Mr. Ajoy, I'm very briefly going to introduce them, and I will invite them to talk more about them. So Mr. Ajoy Khan Ruia, he's the director of Allstate Camp Service Private Limited. Then we have Ms. Dimple Merchant. She's the partner in Ivy Merchant and Company Advocates and Solicitors. And we have Mr. Vipul Thakkar, who is the CEO of New Haribhakti Business LLP. So guys, help me invite Mr. Ajoy Khan Ruia. Ajoy Khan, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm okay, audible?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Dipesh, for calling me an expert on redevelopment. I'm not an expert on redevelopment. Actually, I was elected the head of the real estate vertical of the IBG Group. As you know, IBG Group, as described, headed by Mr. Vikash Vittasen, founded by him, and who's also the founder of Nazara, the record-breaking company. And inspired by him, I have taken on this responsibility only just inspired by him. I had to brush myself up on redevelopment and what it was all about to be able to give you an overview of the whole situation. We have the legal expert and we have the finance expert who will do that. It's a very big topic. It's a huge topic, a very complex topic, and we don't claim to solve any problems in this meeting. This meeting was just kicked off just to set the ball rolling, because this is an issue which seizes everybody. Each one of us almost live in a society, and the benefits of redevelopment are immense. Everybody gets an extra room or extra area. We have more modern living, and dangerous structures are replaced by good ones. So this topic is kicked off from now. I will give you a little overview about the different types of redevelopment which are possible. One is the clean, which used to happen all this time, in which the society would invite a builder. He would reconstruct the whole building. He would keep some FSI for himself, which he would sell and make his profit. The tenants or the members of the society would get additional area or a modern building, depending on the negotiation, or both. And the builder would walk away with some of profits, being an expert in construction, in getting permissions, marketing, and so on. What happened was then the economy went for a dip, and builders started going belly up, and many projects got stuck. Nobody has faith in developers at this moment. That is the reason all the buildings are languishing. So new kind of structures came into play. The one which is now getting popular is to get the developer, but not to transfer the title to him. He will be like a management expert. So he will manage the whole project. He will make sure the titles are clear. He will get the permissions. He will arrange for the funding, get quality construction done, and even do the marketing. For this, these builders who are mid-range of developers, they charge between 12 to 20%, rather 12 to 18% of the total project cost, and they take care of everything. Here, the society is better at peace because the title still belongs to the society. It's not gone to the developer. A lot of stamp duty and other fees are saved, because if you bring in a developer to take over the project, the title, the land has to be transferred to him, and there is a lot of stamp duty involved, or rather there's a registration agreement which has to be signed. A stamp duty has to be paid on that. Also, if the builder doesn't run out of money, then the project gets stuck. So this scheme, the new scheme, has distinct advantage over the old scheme. The third scheme is in which the society becomes a developer themselves, in which they don't even have a builder come in. They are confident of marketing the surplus area, or the members are using it all up, and they have somebody in the members who's an expert in construction. They have an architect in the society, or they have certain experts in the society who can help with all the procedures, which is highly complex. I will tell you it takes sometimes years. So this is a difficult option for the society, because as you know, in all societies, everybody is at, I mean, many places they're at loggerheads, the committee members with each other. And it just takes one rogue member of the committee to scuttle the whole project. You know, it can be vested interest, he can be, you know, bought over or whatever, and he just spoils the whole project. And the same goes on the member side. If the members, one of the members is a activist kind of person, then he also makes a spoke in the whole project. So you can make complaint letters everywhere and screw up the project. So it just takes one person to mess up everything. So in this case, in the earlier scenario, we needed the consent of 70% of the members to start the project or to sanction the scheme. Now it's going to be 50%. I'm not sure actually. Dimple would be able to tell us whether the law has been passed on that or not, to allow 50% voting, 51% consent. The other thing is the control. The society is in full control when you have an expert brought in. The last scheme in which the society becomes a developer is the toughest, because you also need marketing skills, which you know, a society is not expected to have. In the second scheme, in which you bring in a developer, you know, as a kind of an agent, he has some brand name. So I know of, let's say, one of the Mittal builders, one of the sections of Mittal builders who are now doing this, who are uh, uh, taking up such contracts. So these are the three broad options. I will now leave it to the legal and finance experts to tell how this can take place. And then I will probably come back again with some more thoughts. I would also like to add that there are certain experts in the field, and probably they're on this webinar, like Mr. Vijay Ahuja, and then there's MRK, NMRK developers who are also taking management contracts. And Mr. Ramesh Prabhu has been doing a lot of work on this. Mr. Vijay Ahuja is also in the process of forming an association for this. And I hope IBG and Vijayji we can all work together and do something great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ajay Khan. Thank you so much for throwing so much light on the concept of redevelopment and self-development. I would like to invite Ms. Dimple Merchant to throw some light on the legal aspect. So Dimple, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much, IBG, for giving us this wonderful opportunity. Thank you, Dipesh. Thank you, Priya, for introducing us. And thank you, Mr. Ruya and Mr. Tucker, to being an amazing panelist. As what Mr. Ruya spoke with regards to the scheme of self-redevelopment, I would just like to take this a step prior to this, is the 5 years back with regards to the legal framework when it came to real estate sector. As we all know that the real estate sector was going through tough times, and with RERA coming in even more, it was a bit tougher for the real estate developers. But at the same time, it definitely brought in a lot of transparency in the projects. There were different judgments which have been passed so till now, and few important ones are the pioneer judgment, which has been passed by Supreme Court, wherein it has allowed the home buyers or the allottees to be the financial creditor. However, the Supreme Court has definitely put certain restrictions to that, where if the home buyer is a defaulter, or if he is not an allottee, or if he's a speculative investor, or if he is filing it for a malicious intention, or if he can get compensation under RERA, then in that event he cannot file under IBC. Further to that was that there was a judgment which was passed in Manish Kumar versus Union of India, wherein the famous IBC or amendment was challenged, where the home buyers were 1/10 or the 10% of the total home buyers, or 100 home buyers, whichever was less. This was challenged, but Supreme Court upheld the validity of that. In view of the same, the Supreme Court came on heavily, stating that if the home buyers are in few numbers, then they can definitely go to RERA or consumer protection or file a civil suit. They have other remedies to take. But if the home buyers in totality in a particular project is 100, or it is 10% of that same project, then they can go as a financial creditor, not otherwise. So that definitely brought in a little bit of relief to a lot of real estate developers, because earlier it was even one home buyer would form like a financial creditor and go under insolvency and bankruptcy, which again definitely left RERA as a last resource, though it was mainly formed for that. Coming to ahead with time, still we see a lot of buildings which are not completed. And this particular RERA or IBC was mainly for the home buyers and not for the society. So typically the society, in case of any any development dispute, has to go again under a high court. We file a suit for specific performance or for termination, or it might invoke arbitration if the development agreement has an arbitration clause. So this is still a thing which is continuing. There is no separate law or no separate enactment for the society. However, looking at the scenario where the lot of buildings are still in a dilapidated state, or there are certain many times that the society members are actually outside their building, which is it's already demolished, but they are still no construction has been completed, or the construction hasn't started, and sometimes the developers have not even been paying rent to them. So yes, for these situations, the self-redevelopment scheme has been a little bit of a breather to the society. But yes, definitely there are pros and cons for the self-redevelopment, which we would like to discuss, and I would take you through the whole legal aspects of the self-development in the course of this panel discussion. So thank you so much, and over to you, Dipesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dimple. Guys, if you have any questions for any of our panelists, kindly type them in the chat box below. So at the end of the session, we will have a Q&A session, and I'll be happy to ask these questions to the panelists. All right. So moving forward, I invite Mr. Vipul Thakkar to throw some light on his perspective. So Vipul, over to you.
Thanks, Dipesh. Thank you very much, IBG, for making this as a very interactive and informative session. Let me put it a perspective into the financing of the funding. So as a CEO and the founding member of New Hari Bhakti Business Services, we work largely with the banks and the financial institution. So before they disburse the loan, we do financial, non-financial due diligence. And after disbursement of the loan, we do monitoring activity for them. So our activity largely goes for the banks and the financial institution, and the internal process is how it works for taking a decision and facilitation and tracking the post-disbursement monitoring. Typically what happens, if you look at, there are three segments of any project. So one project is a standalone with a single building, or it could be second is like, multi-building or a colony type activity. And third is like, very big township. And depends on the project, and depends on the requirement of the particular project funding. There are people, so traditionally, if you look at it, a single building development or self-development or redevelopment, people normally goes to the friends and relatives or personal investor and take a loan at a very high rate of interest and try to complete the project at the given time frame and then repay and complete the project. In the meat segment, where we talk about multiple buildings or a colony type project where the investment is slightly more, there are a group of serious strategic investors plays a very vital role, and they actually facilitate investment directly to their own field through NBFCs or AIF, so which largely work as an alternative investment financial opportunity for global players who is looking for investing into Indian real estate market. And a third type project, which is very, very large, like township type project, where the amount of fund required is very huge. So in such cases, normally the large builder with the large credibility and requirement, so they normally come forward and execute the project, which is largely funded by big banks, the larger banks, and the big corporate houses like Piramal is there, then India Bulls is there, and then a couple of JMA started doing into financing into large projects. Kotak is also doing very large significant amount of project disbursement. But in addition to that, there are large global funds like Abu Dhabi corporate, Abu Dhabi rural family office fund, and there are a couple of other funds like Blackstone and the global investor. They are making participation into such projects, and they work with you as a strategic investor and then ensure that the projects helps to complete in a time bound manner. So like lot many activity, whether we do self development or redevelopment, there are need of finance, it goes without saying. And but how to get the finance and the what best possible rate of interest which you can afford to complete the project is an important decision to make. So today's topic, I mean, there are a lot many things to discuss on the finance, but I mean, just with overview, I'll stop here and hand it over back to Dipesh. And definitely over a period when you have any specific question, we try to address that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vipul, for throwing light on the finance part of the real estate redevelopment. So Ajoy Kant, I have a question for you. You've pretty much spoken and given us a good introduction, but a lot of people have this question: why self-development, and how is it different from redevelopment? So if you can just focus on this point, I know you've already briefly touched upon, but if you can throw more light on this, the advantages, disadvantages of self-development compared to redevelopment.
Yes, so there are many terms for this now, and they're pretty confusing, I would say. There's something also called the neo redevelopment, which I have yet to understand. But basically, redevelopment in the classic sense is when the society invites a builder and he develops the project. Self redevelopment is when the society wants to do it itself, along with the project management consultant, developer, sorry, or by itself. So that's the difference. Each one has their pitfalls. This would be covered in several seminars, the amount of pitfalls, the amount of complexity, the amount of financial possibilities are immense. So one over the other is only, which is good, which is bad. It has to be only looked at the whole scenario, how the members are, how the society is, what are the title problems, what is the funding requirement, whether the developer is strong. So many questions would lead us to selection of one of the two. So it is strongly suggested to avail the services of professional people. And there are a variety of professional people who will come in the picture. There will be a RERA specialist, there will be a architect, there will be a structural engineer, there will be a municipal architect, there will be a financier, there will be so many people. So each one of them has to be selected with care. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have one such expert here, the legal expert, Dimple. Same question to you, but in a different way. From legal perspective, what is better? Is self-development or redevelopment?
Okay, thank you so much, Dipesh. I would just like to first touch upon that whether you go into a self-redevelopment or a redevelopment, the society per se has to do certain things with regards to right now in 2019, the new directives have come and wherein under 79A, the society has to once they want to look into the redevelopment, the building has to be around 30 years old. Secondly, they have to get into a feasibility report. They have to have a special general resolution passed. As Mr. Ruya earlier mentioned with regards to the percentage, yes, if it has to be 2/3, but then if the quorum is not appropriately formed, then around 51% of the members have to consent to redevelopment. And to add on to this, also now it is mandatory. It's a directive, but I would appreciate it to be mandatory that written consents from all the members of the society are taken. Thereafter, you have to have your title cleared, your conveyance to be in place, your the name of the society on the records have to be 712 extract, etc. has to be there in place. So all these criteria have to be met even for the society, whether they want to go into redevelopment or not. Going further with regards to the redevelopment or self-redevelopment, as I would say, is an SRD. In either of the cases, even you will have to appoint a PMC, a contractor. You might have to have a specific agencies appointed. So once all that occurs in a special resolution, the special resolution passed in the special general body meeting. Thereafter, you in the redevelopment as segment where the developer is concerned, most of the liability of the build construction, then going for the licenses, permissions, grants, all that is concerned has to be will be taken care by the developer. More so, even where the finance is concerned, also that also will be taken care by the developer. And with regards to self-redevelopment, the society A has to first decide their own financing. So each member has to initially contribute in the self-redevelopment till they don't get the funding from the housing finance company. But other than that, they definitely have to themselves get all the requisite permissions and grants which are required. So all those things the society has to definitely look at, because in the redevelopment area, if you go to see the developer, the once you get into a development agreement, only thing the society has to do is just look at an overview and see whether the development is going smooth and it's as per what was decided. But in self-redevelopment, each and every member or the committee which is set has to look into each and every aspect of redevelopment. And in this, the main area is that all the members of the society have to be on the same page. So that is a very important factor when you are deciding on the self-redevelopment segment. The second most important thing is, again, once the funding is in place, how much you will have to have a second backup plan if in case your self-redevelopment does not go through. So yes, these are the pros and cons for going with development with the developer vis-a-vis the self-redevelopment, because here the society has to be strong enough or maybe mentally prepared that the liabilities of self-redevelopment will be on the society, whereas in case of doing it with the developer, all those liabilities are taken care of by the developer. So that is something which I would like to say, that if the society is first venturing into this proposal or the scheme, it is very important for them to first see the pros and cons before moving further in that segment.
All right, cool. Yeah, thank you so much for giving us this in so much detail. And now over to you, Vipul. From the financial perspective, what do you think? Does self-redevelopment require lesser funds? Or if you can again give a comparison between the two options from the financial perspective.
Yeah, if you look at the comparison between the project which is done by a third-party developer and the project which is executed by the self-development. The biggest difference, because the developer, it's a business for him, and everybody does a business for generating profit, right? So assuming 15 to 20% is a margin, what developer is expected to generate out of any project. Whereas when you are doing a self redevelopment, you don't have an expectation of generating any profit out of it, but it's more towards to providing as a services to the member who is jointly doing this activity and the exercise based on their expertise. So maybe somebody is good in accounts, somebody good in finance, somebody is good in funding, somebody is good in technical part, or somebody is good in supplying material. So all put together and supported by the PMC consultant and the developing contracts. So you have the major focus remain as a service to the society and not generating any profit. So I see that yes, straight about 15 to 20% reduction in the cost is likely to be there as a project. Even if you consider the project management consultants costs, about a percent and half, or 200 basis point could be the cost, but still you are saving money out of it. So about, I say that the cost of self-development is about 70 to 18% lesser than the cost if you give it to the third-party developer. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Vipul. We go back to Ajoy Kant. So I would like you to throw more light on who all are the parties involved in self-development. I mean, who are the people that will be like pillars and who will be helping the society for self-development?
Okay. So, the society will have to, amongst themselves, make a subcommittee, and they would be the prime responsibility. They carry the prime responsibility, because you understand there is also RERA will be applicable, and the penalties are pretty harsh under RERA. So this responsibility will have to be undertaken also by this core committee. Then you have to they will appoint a CEO who will be in charge of the whole project, because I mean, nobody is expected to give all his time to the society. No committee member is expected and will also do that. So the CEO would be primarily responsible. He would then, depending on whether we are having the scheme of DMC or whether we are having a self-redevelopment, DMS, I'm sorry, or self-redevelopment, he will then invite tenders, and then the different DMS, companies would be there, selected. Or if they want to do the self-redevelopment, then they have to appoint an architect, and so on. So there will be like I mentioned earlier, there'll be architects, structural engineers, contractors, financiers, chartered accountants, and so on. Cooperative housing society, legal experts. So these are the people involved, and also in the end, marketing. So there will be marketing people involved as well. There are, very good phenomenon has developed. That is, some brokers have corporatized themselves, and they are now taking on the foreign brokers. So, which is a very good development. And these people are 50 to 100 strong. So they have a big team, and they are pretty professional. They advertise properly, and so these can be also appointed by the society to lessen their own burden of marketing. So it's not so bad as it looks. It's not such a big burden. With the right people in place, the society can venture to undertake this self-redevelopment. I can't think of any other people involved in this whole thing other than this. But if anybody else can tell, something, if I missed out, most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajoy. Thank you. So Dimple, Ajoy Khan mentioned about RERA being one of the parties. So my question to you, I have two questions for you now. How RERA is involved in this entire scene, and what is the legal remedy if a project fails halfway?
Okay, thank you so much, Dipesh. So with regards to RERA, this is twofold. One is if under self-redevelopment, if the project is built and the FSI is being utilized for the new flat purchasers, then in that event, the society has to register themselves under RERA. And yes, as you all know, that this society is a co-promoter if there is a developer. Then now in this sense, since there is no developer, the society themselves will be promoters. So all the liabilities of RERA will be on the society when you are introducing new flat purchasers in your existing building. However, with regards to if the society is a small society and they have themselves decided to utilize the existing FSI for themselves and not sell it outside or not give it for the new buyers, then in that event, RERA registration is not required under Section 32C. So therefore, in that scenario, yes, definitely there will be RERA liabilities, and I think most of the societies definitely will go in for redevelopment, wherein the new flat purchasers will be coming in, and that's where they will be obviously making their share, and the repayment of the loans, etc., will take place. So definitely RERA will be involved in it. Again, if the new flat purchasers, if you don't give possession on time, etc., then new flat purchasers will definitely sue the society for under RERA for possession. So those all issues which the developer faced in RERA will definitely be faced by the society, and that they have no escape for that. With your second question with regards to legal remedies, first let's see that what disputes can come in with regards to self redevelopment. The first and foremost dispute what I see is where all the members inter se are fighting, because over a period of time when you're doing self redevelopment, I mean, we've seen even in many of the cases where we've also handled, where there are huge societies with almost 300 members or so, then in that event the society's members inter se also have their own disputes, and therefore because of which the redevelopment project gets stalled. So it's very important firstly that the members inter se have to be on the same page. The second is that there might be a dispute with regards to the PMC or the contractors. However, that dispute is per se, if you're doing under self-redevelopment, it is more contractual based between the society and the PMC. So technically, if tomorrow you're terminating any of their contracts, then in that event, of course, we'll have to see the terms and conditions of the contract. Then you have to continue or maybe reappoint new PMC. So in that event, nowhere your construction of the building should stop, because again, if you're taking funding from the bank, then the repayments that will continue. So that also is one of the issue which will be there. And thirdly is the flat purchasers, as I said, they might sue. So these are some of the issues that might arise, which might create difficulty in the self-redevelopment. But with regards to the legal remedies, since the society itself is going to be redeveloping the project, they cannot, earlier the society used to, if the development has not been completed or not as per the development agreement, they could sue the developer. Here, in this sense, the society has to take the onus upon themselves on whatever the development is happening. However, of course, you can definitely enter into a barter transaction with the developer, or get into a lock and key agreements with the developer, or a package deal that is completely on case-to-case basis. But even in that scenario, society still will be liable for it. When it comes to the remedy part, the only remedy, if today we don't look into any of these contracts and we just go for a normal self redevelopment, then in that event, if the development gets stopped, then the only option that I see as of now, till if unless the authorities give some kind of a guideline, then it would be that you would have to probably appoint some developer or go to the developer to complete the development which is unfinished. So that is one of the things that I see it. More than that, also we have also seen that there is also, if you know, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this famous case of Ganganagar D Cooperative Housing Society. in which the chairman and the secretary themselves had sold TDR to multiple people, thereby committing a TDR fraud. So again, that is also one of the things that the society has to be very sure that whoever is the committee appointed or the chairman, treasury, secretary, all of them have to be have to do the entire project in a efficient manner, in a right manner, according to the due process of law, in order to avoid this kind of a situation. I'm not saying that it is difficult for a self-redevelopment. It is, you can, but provided this could be easier when there is a small society, the members are also themselves in a position to afford or contribute more capital if initially, if that money does not come in from the banks, sorry, from the housing finance companies, then in that event it is easier. But when it comes to large societies, clustered societies, or federal societies are concerned, then definitely this will be a challenge for self-redevelopment.
Cool. Wow, that was an exhaustive answer. And you mentioned that there was a society with 300 members and they had dispute.
Yeah.
You know any society where members have no dispute?
Exactly. So that is the biggest challenge, that they all have to first come to peace with each other first. Then go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So Vipul, over to you. And this is going to be a last question because for the panel, because there are a lot of questions people are asking. So I want time for Q&A session as well. So if you can tell us how and from where can the society get funding, and how will they manage or track the costs of the project?
So let me answer the second question first in terms of how to track the project and the funding. So before start of the project, for any project, whether it's a redevelopment project or a self-redevelopment project, there's a feasibility report has been prepared. So feasibility report gives the breakup of in terms of what is the size of the plot available, what is the construction possibilities there, what is the TDR facility available, what is FSI, unused FSI available, or the construction FSI possible to load and unload, and then look at in terms of any setback area available. So this is all technical part to it. When we talk about the financial part, so basically there are four components which largely needs to look at when we talk about the financial projection and the financial cost to the project. So that I call it as a milestone. So first milestone of the project which needs to be looked at here, where your fund is required, is your taking the approvals from the government in terms of your the approval plan for IODs and CCs and all of the stuff what is required for water check and all of the stuff. So this is the first cost which comes as a major cost, and I say major cost because it takes a lot of time to take approval from the government authorities, and a lot of money also goes into that. So that is the first milestone to track in terms of your project. The second milestone is the construction cost. The construction cost goes into the construction activity. So on an average, about 20 to 22 days, this one slab completes. But it completes depends on the size of the floor, height of the floor, and the width of the area, and all of that, a lot of other technical matters. So when the project is in the stage of completion, so then there is a second level of activity needs to look at that what is the completion height of the project which is completed, and as compared to that, what is the material what is required to be used is likely to incur as a part of the project cost. So that is your material cost is the second highest cost. So that needs to be looked at in terms of the progress of the project. So suppose if it is a 9-story or 11-story building, or even if it is 24-story building, normally it takes about 18 to 24 months. So first 3 months is take for plinth and the base area, and then you start constructing on the further height for first floor, second floor, and so on. So the base takes long time and lot cost. When it comes out, the pillar comes out, and you start constructing the building. So then first story, second story, and every story takes about 22 to 35 days, depends on the size and the width and all. And the amount of material also goes proportionate to that. So that is the second largest cost which the person needs to look at as a part of the tracking. The third cost, which is your accommodation cost, which is as a part of your feasibility study, when you're taking over the project, your members were there erstwhile, owning that premises. You need to relocate them to some other place. So either it goes as a part of the understanding, as a part of the project, where everybody is allowed to take certain percentage of certain money to pay for the rent and other stuff, and they go outside and come till the time the project is completed, they stay outside. So that cost is factored as a part of the understanding. In certain project, as a part of the contractual understanding, so rather than contributing to a project and then take the money back as a rental accommodation for the rental accommodation, some of the building allows people to make their own arrangement at whatever the price is. So then for the project costs, in that case comes down to a certain extent. But most societies prefer to do it because then everybody remain at par and then they decide what to do and how to do. So this is the third largest cost as a part of the project. And the fourth largest cost when we talk about is the finance cost. So if the money, and obviously in most cases, the money is taken from the outside market. So whether it's a bank or the strategic investor or a strategic partner or AIF or other investment fund, in all cases, the finance cost is included as a part of the project. So it's all vital that your project, what is defined. So if it is defined in 18 to 24 months, the project must complete it in 18 to 24 months because you have factored that cost as a part of your project cost. If the construction or the deferment happens in the construction completion, that means your outstanding amount to the financial is going beyond a particular threshold, and that increases your cost, which is your fourth largest important pillar, which needs to look at as a part of the cost. So if any of the pillar is not maintained or not tracked properly, that's a likelihood that your cost is going to go up. So these are the four things needs to look at. Now, looking at the avenues where the financing is available, so there are a lot many possible avenues, like Mumbai District Cooperative Bank. They are the first bank who has actually started the process to become a strategic financial partner to redevelopment of the society. But for them and any project and for the bank, the limit is up to 50 crores of the project, which what they can give as a sanction. There are other funds like JM Finance has started a real estate fund, Kotak has started with real estate fund, and there are a lot many other global funds like Blackstone has started, Indiabulls is starting in the process of starting something, Piramal has started doing construction finance activity. So that these are all individual firms, corporates, and the NBFCs provide financing options for construction and completion of the project. Now, certain cases, the developer themselves arrange for the fund and they come as a part of your financing function. So they takes over the financial liability and all the financial cost, and they put it as a part of their construction contract. So that all the construction contract, whatever they entered with the developer, that includes their finance cost also. So there are various permutation combination and various sources from which the funding can be done. When we go for the self-finance activity, so if you can further bifurcate in terms of if the project is completed, your IOD is received, CC is received, and then you can enter into an agreement for sale. So based on which the individual people, the house owners, they can approach for the bank for taking a housing loan. And that housing loan comes back to construction as a completion of the project. So you get it the cheaper and the best price. So there are a lot of structuring or a lot of advice analysis needs to be done, which is more economical and more effective for any type of the project. But there are a lot of opportunities and avenues available for the financing.
All right. Thank you so much, Vipul. Thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some questions now. I know there are a lot of questions, and some questions have been already answered in a certain way by the panelists. So I might not be able to take all questions. So Dimple, the first question is for you. What are the concern areas in self-development to look for?
Thank you so much, Dipesh. So the most important part is when you're seeing in the in self redevelopment is that your scheme has to be correctly done by your PMCs and your contractors or DMs, as the case may be. If you go through the entire self redevelopment GR which they have given, you see various incentives which they have been mentioning about with regards to the single window clearance for within 6 months time for all the permissions. Then they have also been given FSI. They've also been mentioned with regards to the FSI incentive, TDR incentives. I just want to make it more clearer is that when you go into self-redevelopment, the FSI incentive, which is there, that is 50% on the existing area, which is under your 33(7) A and B. That is also not only for redevelopment, but also for normal redevelopment, not just for self-redevelopment. Again, where the incentive is for the TDR 50% reduction from the ready reckoner, again, it is for redevelopment in general. Your land on construction tax also, it is if you complete within the prescribed time, then the tax is not applicable, otherwise it will be. Again, that is for redevelopment in general. Like that, there are many other incentives which are given for redevelopment. The main is the single window clearance, which for the society, they don't have to keep going to the BMC to keep getting, or different other authorities for getting their grants and all. So yes, definitely that is there. Secondly, what I would like to also inform is that as per the regulation, the nodal agency has to be formed. There has to be a vigilance committee. There has to be an adjudicating authority who will be overlooking the self-redevelopment. So as of now, no such committee, to my knowledge, has been formed or has been instituted. But definitely all these areas are definitely given, and it's a proposed thing by the government. So we are hoping that by all these various incentives and the various vigilance committee, etc., or subsidy on loan, I think they're giving 4% subsidy from the normal rate, if that people can say better, actually. So those things are definitely there. Secondly, with regards to, again, the funding is there, I would like to say is that the society has to mortgage the land as well as the units. It depends, of course, from each contractual arrangement between the financial housing finance company as well as the society, but this has to be a tripartite agreement between the housing finance as well as the lender, the society, and also the contractor. Then there is also a need with regards to the open space deficiency charges. That also is the same with regards to redevelopment and self-development. So technically, whatever we see as incentives given for self-redevelopment are also applicable in your normal redevelopment.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm going to take one more question because we are almost out of time. So Namrata has asked, I would like to know which are the institutes currently active in funding the self-development where there is a developer on management contract. Also, at what stage of the development do they step in? I think Vipul can answer this.
So Mumbai District Cooperative Bank for the project in Mumbai, they are the first to set up this activity and become a first financial institution as a bank to become part as a strategic investor to the project. So they were started with the first, and followed by a couple of other banks have started, but they provide as a construction finance. And in typical cases, like the maximum limit for a project is about 50 crores. Unless there is a very sizable amount of project and then the approach is made at a different level. When it comes to NBFC, so JM Finance has created real estate fund. So you can approach Gitanjali. She is a managing director of a real estate fund who looks after this sort of redevelopment project. In India Pools, Vijay is the person, Vijay Nehra is the credit head who takes the decision for the construction finance projects. Then you have Piramal, though they have restricted their portfolio in the construction finance, but Mr. Pauri, Kodat Pauri is the asset head who is taking care of looking at the new asset as a project, but then they look at very big size projects only. And for the smaller project, they look at it more as a housing finance as a product rather than the construction finance. Uh, uh, there are yes.
Vipul, let me just make, because a lot of people have asked the same question, so I'm going to make it very simple. Can you help them connect with all of these guys?
Yeah, of course, and that is what the IBG is for. So IBG's role is that.
So guys, I know because a lot of people have asked similar question. So we will share Vipul's contact on the chat, and please connect with him, and he'll directly connect with you with, I'll give you more options, right? So
yeah,
so life becomes easy.
Yeah, absolutely. That because that's the perfect thing, and that is what the whole idea is. IBG platform is for helping others. So feel free to send your email to Priya and Girish and Siddhi, and then we'll internally coordinate, and then we'll try to come back to you with the possible options.
Perfect.
Dipesh,
so
Dipesh,
yes.
I'd also like to highlight the one thing which was mentioned before about the barter system.
Sure, Ajoy, 30 seconds because we'll have to close.
No, I'm just putting in the buzzword. I just wanted to put in the buzzword of barter system. That is one option more for the society to introduce that in whichever scheme they're following. Over.
Cool. That was less than 30. All right, guys. So I think this was an absolutely enlightening discussion, and thank you so much. I would like to invite Vikash Mittal Sen, our founder president, to give closing remarks. Vikash, over to you.
Thank you. I'm in a meeting. So hi, thanks a lot. That 1 hour just flew away. I don't know, but we gathered in 1 hour so much information. We wouldn't normally do it in 1 year of classes. To mention a little bit, I myself were a developer earlier. I had built up 2 of my own buildings. One was a redevelopment project of my own Khar bungalow at Khar. And I have another building in, the reason I'm mentioning is that I have slight information about how buildings are done, made, legal side of it, and so many things. What is not mentioned here today is we don't yet have a national policy for building and building activities and developers. Every city has its own plan, even to the extent of smaller, like BMC has its own plan, and you have to go to them. There is no national policy, or as far as I know. Like in USA, the entire economy revolves against housing starts. Economic counting is based only on housing starts during a particular period. In India, we don't have anything like that. There is no centralized point from where the economy can be judged. This is just a side thing which I wanted to say. So I don't know, I think Vipul wants to say something about that.
No.
So you have heard of housing starts in USA?
Yeah, there are a lot of things are happening, and how in terms of financing arrangement and the housing stuff in US and India. India will take another 5 to 7 years to reach to that level.
10 years more.
Yeah, very true.
Because the entire US economy base is based on housing starts.
Correct.
How many houses were started? Because the rest of the things follow a house. Whether what they buy and what people do and what is bought and sold. So that was just a point of that I know about in USA how this happens. So I think, our committees now have become sort of run by really top people. People with real expertise in what they're saying, what they're doing, and this can only grow. So thank you. Thanks a lot, everybody. Wish you all the best. Please come out of COVID very soon.
Thank you, Vikash. And a very big thank you to all the panelists once again. Thank you, Ajoy Kant Ruya. Thank you, Dimple, and thank you, Vipul, for being amazing panelists. And thank you guys for participating in today's panel discussion and asking so many questions. What we are going to do is we will share the questions with the panelists and we will have them answered and send the answers to you guys. All right. So thank you and have a safe evening. Take care. Bye-bye.